This special episode is dedicated to the complete beginner. We are gonna take a breather from the Art of Sculpture series, and we're gonna learn ZBrush in less than 30 minutes. This episode is also a way to thank you for subscribing in so many to the Art of Sculpture series. You guys are awesome. As a gift, I want to share with you the material and the light setup many ask me about. If you enjoy the series, please keep subscribing, keep liking the videos, but mostly keep sharing them with a few artists who care. I told you that ZBrush can be learned in less than 30 minutes. Now, I work as a professional 3D modeler and digital sculptor for the film industry. I use ZBrush on a daily basis, and I can guarantee you that you will get started with this short introduction. Now, don't get me wrong, you will need a lifetime of practice, and that is what I cover in my Art of Sculpture series. But if you're a complete beginner and you want to get started, then this introduction is for you. So get your digital clay ready and let's create. So let's start. On the sides, you can double click on this divider, okay? And it expands other menus. The menus you see here, okay, you see this tool, there are these ones here, you see on top, okay? You can undock them by clicking on it, and you can click on these menus, okay? And if you click on this little icon here, you can dock it wherever you want. If you do one click, it will dock it to the closest area. Right here in the tool palette, all these menus are called palette. If you click on one of these icons, you will have available all of the basic geometries. We want to start with the sphere, so one click on the sphere, minimize this window. Now if I left click and drag, there we go, I have my geometry on the canvas. In this moment, if I try to left click on the canvas, it will continuously drag out the same geometry. So what we want to start sculpting, you can press Ctrl N to clear out the canvas. So drag out again with left click. I want to press T, and now you see you have a red cursor, and this will allow you to rotate and move your geometry. The rotation and the panning and the moving, it's the trickiest thing in ZBrush. You will just need a bit of time to get used to that. We want to get a cylinder because we're gonna see all these movements a bit more clearly. So we just open the tool palette again, left click on cylinder, and there we go. You see if I left click, I'm moving it around, rotating it around, okay? Now, if I press shift while moving it around, it will snap it to the closest axis. Now, if you alt and left click and then release alt and move your mouse, you will zoom in and out, okay? So this is the trickiest one. Let's see that again. Okay, so alt, left click, so don't release left click, only release alt and move up and down or left and right, okay? So just get used to these three controls, okay? Rotate around, shift to snap, and alt left click, drag, and release alt. If I press shift F, I'm gonna see a wireframe. So we're gonna see our geometry, our topology. Now, I'm gonna run you through the most useful functionalities of ZBrush, which I use every day at work or as a professional artist. There's thousands of things you can do in ZBrush, and there's thousands of ways you can easily get lost in ZBrush. So what you wanna do, you wanna try and get the 20% of all these tools. That 20% is gonna be the main tools you're gonna use throughout your whole career, okay? And I'm gonna guide you through that stuff very quickly. So the secret of ZBrush are the brushes. And up here on the left, you can choose your brush. So if I left click on this guy, I see all my brushes. I have a bunch of them. Probably you will see way less than these ones. If you press B, that's where you see all of your brushes, okay? So the brushes you're gonna use are a few, to be honest. I have all of them for, for every situation at work. Maybe you need to do some crazy, I don't know, mech robot or something like that. Then I have a bunch of brushes that allows us to do all sorts of different things. But your basic work is mainly a kind of clay brush, and I usually use the clay build-up. So now we can start using this brush. And we want to activate symmetry with X. So if I press X, So I got my symmetry on. Whatever you do on one half of your geometry is going to be represented on the other half of the geometry. Now, if I start, what ZBrush asks you now, it's actually the tunable sculpting. You need to convert this to a Polymesh 3D. So every time you drag a geometry into your canvas, you will need to go into the tool palette and click Make Polymesh 3D. And now you can start sculpting on your sphere. Okay, so if we left click or use our Wacom pen, that's what I'm doing now, and you see we're starting to sculpt on our sphere. Okay, Control Z, we can go back, because now you see that it's very faceted. This is because the mesh is a very low res mesh in this moment. So we want to Control D, and you're gonna increase the subdivision. So you see that now we subdivided twice. So that means if I Shift F and look at my wireframe, now it's way more dense. And you will see down that if I go over with my clay buildup, you see that now it's way more precise, way more detailed, and also it looks like it may be slightly more responsive. Okay, so because the brush is allowed to express itself in a more powerful way, the sensitivity, okay, of your pen. Let's go on. I want to show you what this left side here is first, and then I will quickly show you what we need from the right side, and then what we need from the top side. Below the brush menu, we can select our stroke freehand. It means that the way the clay is built up follows a freehand gesture. And the other two, the other main one is drag rectangle. Drag rectangle will actually, if you click and drag out, it will drag out what's in here, which is the alpha of the brush. Okay, and this is like the head of your brush. Okay, so whatever it's in here, if I click on it, you're gonna see a bunch of alphas here because those are the ones I collected over the years. But basically, this is the end of your brush. Okay, so it's gonna be a soft brush. It's gonna, you're gonna have this sort of stamp, you know. So if I click on this kind of stuff, for example, you will see a different kind of effect. Okay, if I use something like this, okay, let's go back a few times so we have a bit more of a real estate. If I drag this, you will see I have exactly this alpha, okay, dragged out here. Okay, so this is very useful, extremely useful in your day-to-day work. I use alphas every day for about everything. You can use them in a very creative way. You will learn to use them, not in this tutorial, because the way you're gonna use them is just to try a bunch of stuff every day, and you know, you find a problem and you Google it out. Sometimes, hey, how can I do this? How can I do I don't know, a rock alpha or this or that? And then you experiment, and that's how you learn. So you can get started in ZBrush with this introduction, but you will need a bunch of learning to do by yourself, okay? But this will get you started. If we go one item low, we'll see the materials, okay? You see that the materials are divided into madcap materials and into standard materials. The madcap materials, all of these guys. So if I click on one, you will see my geometry changing to that material. Now, the only difference between these guys, okay, is that if I choose a standard material, and then if I want to move the light of the scene around, I can do that. I can click on light, I can dock it, okay, and you see this little sphere here, this little orange dot, okay, if I click and drag, this is my light. So you see if I move it toward the left, it's changing. If I move it toward the light, it's changing, okay, or I can turn it off. This is my light. I can have multiple lights, okay. If I click on this and I turn it on, there you go. So these are presets from ZBrush. You can find it into your default configuration. So you see they're already placed, and they have already a certain intensity that you can play with. Here you go. And ambient, okay, ambient light. Usually I kill the ambient all the way to 0, because I like to have I like to play with ambient occlusion during the render phase. All these guys, we don't care at this moment. This here is the color picker, okay. If you click on a different area here, it will be filled with a color. Let's go on with the top bar, okay. Lightbox, you just open it by pressing it. You can press comma, okay, and it's basically an overview of all the folders. These are all the folders which are in your ZBrush project. Noise presets, material presets, and this is all stuff you'll need to explore by yourself, okay? It's not the point of an introduction to ZBrush. We want to get you started with sculpting, okay? Do not ever worry about all these 5 icons, okay? Edit, draw, move, scale, rotate. Don't worry about this stuff, and I'll tell you why. Edit, we already covered it. It's our T button, okay? And whenever you press on T, we will switch from 3D to 2.5D, okay? You can always tell and always switch. Okay, something important is, you know, when you move around your geometry, so you can get it back with F. Move, scale, and rotate. You're not gonna care about these icons because you wanna use the W, E, and R shortcuts, okay? They will all bring the new gizmo, okay? This is the new ZBrush gizmo. If you press Y, you will have the old, what was called the transpose, okay? So the first one, let's go back with Y to get our previous gizmo. The gizmo allows you to move your geometry in the 3D space. You actually don't need to press W, E, or R. You just need to click on the different icons. So when you click on the arrows, you're moving. When you click on the box, you are scaling, okay, on these axes, or rotating when you click on the circles. And when you click on the yellow, you're scaling uniformly on all the axes, okay? Now, if you keep Alt pressed, Alt, okay, and if you click this guy, reset orientation, is gonna reset the orientation of the gizmo towards the camera. If you click go to unmasked mesh center, it will center the gizmo. You'll need to have your Alt pressed. You see that this thing unlocks, because if it's not pressed, then you are moving the geometry. So remember, Alt to unlock the gizmo. Okay, so if you keep Alt pressed, you unlock the gizmo and you move this guy around. Okay, the other important thing we have here is Sculptress. If you left click on Sculptress, you're gonna see that your cursor turns purple. To have Sculptress activated, we cannot have subdivisions. So we're gonna go into our tool palette and we're gonna click on Subtool. If you click on each one of these options, they're gonna expand, okay? You have a bunch of options here. We're not getting too concerned about them now, but you can expand geometry, go all the way up. And here you see that you have your subdivisions, the ones that we created with Control D, okay? So wanna press on delete lower, it's gonna delete all the lower subdivisions. So now I wanna get rid of this alpha, get something softer. Okay, get rid of the drag rectangle, get our freehand. Okay, so now we're good to sculpt. If I click on Sculptress again, now you'll see Shift F, bring the wireframe. You see what's happening. So wherever you sculpt, it's subdividing the geometry on the fly, okay? So this basically allows you, okay? This allows you to sculpt without worrying too much about your topology. Okay, let's go on. We're here in the middle bar. So we're here at the Sculptress mode usually, so we want to leave it activated. All these guys here, okay? So RGB intensity, ZAD intensity, all this stuff here, forget about it. Press space bar. Space bar, it's gonna bring up all this stuff. So if I press space bar, I can set my draw size. I can set my focal shift. Okay, the focal shift, look at what happened if I change the focal shift. Okay, that's basically how blurred the brush is gonna be. On the right, you actually don't want to bother with all this stuff. Okay, the only thing you want to bother with is your dynamics perspective. Okay, which you can also press P. Okay, this is your perspective on our fantastic blob here. And then your floor will show you where the floor is. Now don't worry about this because I changed my orientation for another project. Okay, and you don't want to care about all this stuff. So now the hot stuff. Now I will tell you a few of the main brushes you're gonna need for your whole career, and that's it. And okay, let's start with some type. You usually will need 3 to 4 main brushes, okay, and that's all. Then you can have all of your varieties and everything like I do, but the main work will be done with those 3 or 4 brushes, okay? And they're gonna be Now I'm gonna press B. The first one is some sort of additive brush. Okay, you could use, and I usually use the clay buildup. Clay buildup, press spacebar and bring the intensity to 2 or 3, and look at this. It's basically like if you're squeezing a tube of clay. Okay, a tube of clay which doesn't exist to my knowledge, but this is basically what's happening. It's like if you are squeezing clay on your stuff. And I usually use this to create volume at the beginning. I may be a bit more aggressive with intensity, okay, but I rarely do this. I usually stay lower than 10 because it already gives you some really nice volumes, okay. And you want to be nice and loose with your clay buildup. These are all these marks, you know, they're gonna be very interesting very soon. Then once you did this, let's press B again. You may want to have some sort of trimming brush. Okay, so we're gonna use, if we press T, okay, we're gonna see all the brushes beginning with T, and usually I use something called the trim dynamic. Now trim dynamic, see the magic? It's basically smoothing out. This is like if you are you know, if you're cleaning your clay work, okay, and it gives you a nice and sharp planar kind of structure. Okay, so first you put the clay on and then you want to trim it out, okay, and clean it. Okay, so we have clay buildup, trim dynamic. So let's press B. So we saw how to add some clay, how to clean it, okay, and now we want to know how to move it. And guess what? Press M and it's going to be the move tool. The move tool, usually used with very wide you know, with very wide draw size, allows you to literally pull your clay around. Okay, there's not too much to talk about this guy. It's not compatible with the sculptors, so you see now it's a red cursor, so, and the geometry is not deforming nicely. There's another move brush you could use if you want to still have the sculptors mode activated, and it's called, if you press S, it's called the snake hook. Okay, you see this allows me to move, and look at the magic happening. Okay, it's creating geometry on the fly. The difference with between these two brushes, the move and the snake hook, is that the snake hook has a talent for pulling out long elongated forms out of your shape. Okay, so you can create a bunch of tentacles, or if you hairs, or you want to create a neck or an arm or something like that. Okay, so very useful. Let's go back a few strokes. Okay, so I showed you the trim dynamic. Now what I want to show you is something which I used massively, and it's called orb cracks. This is not default, I'm afraid. I think it's not a default brush, but you can download it. If you write orb cracks, you're gonna find it pretty easily. Orb cracks is gonna help you to create massive, it's like a knife. If you're a sculptor, you know, it's like a knife. You're basically creating this, and this is so useful because if you press Alt while you drag your mark, it will invert. Okay, so first Alt, you see it will invert the mark. So this helps you to create a bunch of ridges. You see, usually I create by pulling out and then going in. You see, it creates this sort of nice wavy rhythms. Could be cool for hairs, or you know, it's actually, you're gonna need it for. I use it when I'm sculpting statues and I want to create this sort of nice drapery. Okay, and then you can use it in combination with, you know, we've seen 3 brushes now. So, okay, so your clay buildup, your trim dynamic, and that's what you could use, for example. Okay, so I press T again, B and T, trim dynamic. Okay, now look at this, you can sort of smooth out, not smooth out, actually chisel out all this stuff. Okay, so to be honest, these are the main brushes I use. Clay buildup, or some sort of clay. You will see in my sculpting series that I use a different set of brushes, but in that series I want to have the most natural feeling of clay I can get, and those are different brushes. But for my day-to-day work at the studio, I will always use mainly a variation of clay buildup, or some kind of clay. and then we use the trim dynamic, and then the orb crack, and some kind of move or snake hook to move stuff around. So very easy, 3 or 4 brushes forever, for your life, for your 3D career, and you're done. So now what else? Now I'm gonna show you a few functionalities that you may need, which are very useful when moving around, okay? And the first one, and let me tell you something, to learn all these things, my main suggestion is learn how to customize the UI, which you will learn by clicking on preferences, enable customize. You see that you have some more real estate. Now if I control alt and click on one of on a button, and I bring it here, so you can see I can dock stuff around. You see? So you can dock stuff around. If you bring it into the window, you can cancel it. This is the best way to learn ZBrush. I usually have my interface. You can see in my sculpting series, I use a lot a custom interface, and that's the way I basically know ZBrush. It's because I just have 10 or 15 of all these little actions, of these little operators I use a lot, and they're really not all of these guys. Okay, they're not all of these guys. Not for the sculpting part anyway. Okay, and I want to show you something. Something very powerful in ZBrush is called the masking. Okay, masking is done by, with whatever brush you have. If you press Control, you'll see here, you go into a mask mode. Okay, so you have a mask pen. Okay, now if I paint with Control activated, I'm masking a model. Okay, now that I have this mask activated, okay, and by the way, if you Control click on your model with the mask, you're gonna blur the mask, whereas if you Control Alt and click, you're gonna sharpen the mask. Okay, and now what we have is an area of the model which is protected from whatever we do. So you see I'm going in, but I'm not touching the masked part. It's protected. Okay, so this is immensely useful if you want to do for everything, you know. Let's say that you want to have some kind of the model protruding. Okay, you can mask that area. If you Control and click in the canvas with your mask on, it's gonna invert your mask. So now we can go and get our move brush, for example. This is something you can do ordinary, or you're gonna do daily basically, and so every time, so you can pull out stuff, you know, only from that area. Okay, if you press Shift, in this case you have a lot of bad geometry. If you press Shift with whatever brush you have, if you press Shift, you go into smooth mode. Okay, smooth mode is like if you're spraying water on your clay. Okay, you can smooth it out, and also remember we have sculptures activated, so it's literally so easy now. Before we didn't have sculptures, and it was so difficult because you would have to dynamesh all the stuff, you know. And in any case, don't want to confuse you, it's a very short and dirty guide to get started on ZBrush. So we did this thing, you know, and so we learned the masking. Okay, Control, mask again. So you see what happens if I start masking from the outside of my geometry, then I'll get a rectangle. Okay, whereas if I Control and mask inside my geometry, I have a pen. And you can change all this stuff. So when I press Control, I have my masking stuff here. You can click, and instead of a pen, you can have your mask lasso, mask curve pen, mask curve. Okay, these are all different variations of the masking. Click mask lasso, now I have a lasso. See? To delete the mask, you just Control drag outside of your geometry. Okay, Control drag outside of your geometry. Okay, so if I mask an area now, I can do a bunch of stuff. I can Control W, and I'm gonna polygroup that area. Look at this. What are polygroups? Polygroups are different areas of your model which you can delineate, and you can basically do a bunch of stuff with your groups. Okay, we're not gonna cover that now. So you can mask stuff. Okay, and you can go into visibility here, and you can hide PT, hide points. Okay, it's gonna hide whatever is not masked. If you want to hide something you masked, you can do that with the visibility. Okay, functionality and usually, or you can also use the Control Shift. Look at this, it changes again your brush. You're going to selection rectangle, okay, mode, and look at this. If I drag, now this is gonna hide whatever is not selected. Or if I Control Shift Alt, it's gonna hide whatever is selected. Okay, so Control Shift, you can hide stuff. Okay, or another way is you can mask stuff. Just Control and then hide it. Okay, there's a bunch of other functionalities I'd like to show you, but to be honest, this goes beyond the scope of this very short tutorial. Those are all things you will learn within a context. Okay, so every time you're looking for something in ZBrush, you will learn to, I don't know, how to create a procedural belt or curves. We didn't see the curves, for example, but that's way too much for this tutorial. So I want to recap, very quickly. What I wanted to show you is the main brushes you're going to use, which is some sort of clay buildup, which is some move brush, and some kind of a knife or carving brush. Okay. Then we saw how to use sculptors. Okay, to activate sculptors. Remember that sculptors will not work if you have divisions, okay, or if you have the move brush. So you saw that grayed out because I had the move brush. So we learned that if we press spacebar, we have all of our different functionalities here. We learned our alphas. We learned that we can put basically stamps on our brush. We learned that if we press Alt, then we subtract clay from our stuff. Okay. We learned that by pressing Control, we're gonna mask stuff. We learned that by pressing Control Shift, we're gonna hide stuff. Okay. We learned that if we press Control D, we're gonna subdivide and get more geometry and more dense geometry. If we press Shift D, we can go lower to our lower subdivision. We learned how to delete lower subdivisions from the Geometry tab, so that we can use our Sculptors mode again. Then we learned the basic navigation, which is Alt, which is moving around. If I click on the canvas, pressing Shift to snap stuff, Alt and left click to pan around. Now if I keep moving, but release Alt and the magic keys, you're gonna zoom in and out. Yeah, it was really a fast and furious introduction. This wasn't a project-based tutorial. I'm doing a whole video series on that, which is on the art of sculpture in ZBrush. And so I just wanted to give you the possibility to really get started quickly in ZBrush. So that's it. If you like this quick and dirty introduction and you like this kind of blob we did, it's an amazing piece of art, just feel free to like this short video and share it with your friends. Get started and do some little sculpting, have fun, explore, don't be shy, and take care guys, and keep sculpting.